Alright. And anybody who take the bottle of Johnny Walker Black, better bring it back, yeah?
And welcome to the Island Club here on ATFM. I'm Rent Gorter, and like every Friday I have an interview here in the studio to talk about ideas, projects and stories. And today I've got a special guest because I've got Rob Tucker here. Rob Tucker's just come back to the island here to launch his book, Images of a Nation of Great, with the Great Barrier Edition. Now it's a book of photographs that you can see yourself tomorrow at the launch at Claris Club. I think 10 o'clock onwards he'll be there and present the book. And it's quite an impressive volume of photographs that we'll talk about with Rob here. Hello, Rob.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, I'll get you to move close to the microphone so we hear well. And look, just you just come back to the island, but I believe you've got a bit of a history with the island. Just tell us a story of how you ended up here.
Well, I used to work on the New Zealand Herald, and I was a picture editor there. And one of the photographers I was working with was a chap called Dave Hancock, and Dave, I sent him on assignment out here in the early 1980s, I think it was, and he came back to the Herald office raving about what a great place Great Barrier was. And then soon after that, he informed me that he'd bought a property here and he's building a house in the bush. And I thought I might lose him as a photographer. He's an amazing photographer. But he continued to work at the Herald for another year or so. And then more and more of his time was spent over here. And I decided to come and see what he was talking about. And I flew over here with Fred Ladd, if people can remember Fred Ladd. And yeah, I fell in love with the place straight away. I could see what Dave was talking about. And the thing that attracted me was the fact there was no power, the roads were unsealed, there was some characters, and beautiful beaches, and you could really veg out with a great holiday, especially in the summer. So I bought a property in Gooseberry Flat, 2.5 acres. I won't tell you what I paid for it, but it was very next to nothing. And had 10 wonderful years of coming out here with my first off in an old 38 Chev truck with the kids on the back, and then bought an old Land Rover, and that used to get me around the island. And I sold the property probably 15 years ago, and Dave and I have kept in touch, and the opportunity came up to go back and visit Barrier with a mate of mine in his 72-foot yacht. So 2 years ago we sailed from Whangarei down to here in this beautiful yacht, and Dave and I decided we'd do a book on the Barrier we remember. So it's a joint effort between the two of us. Dave's now based in Byron Bay in north of Sydney, and of course Byron Bay is an old hippie commune basically, so he fits in there really well, moving from Barrier to Byron Bay.
And Byron Bay, like Barrier, I would like to think of also attracts artists and alternative lifestylers and of all colours, and so that's really a little bit also what we kind of represent here. But what representation of the island did you end up with in your book? What's sort of the themes that you picked up?
Well, it's the things that people remember it by, is like the Medlands Beach, the white sand, maybe the Kauri forests, the people. And Dave and I, being photojournalists, enjoy photographing people. That's part of our art and what we do. And so we've got a mixture of some of the real characters on the island, along with some beautiful landscapes and sunsets, of course, which you're famous for. But the roads are spoiled now. They're all tar seal.
Well, it gets you there with the equipment a lot quicker
Yes.
to catch the sunset just in time.
Yeah, well, there's no dust.
That's quite something. And so when you're saying the island as you remember it, is this bringing back to get photos that you collect along the way, or is this a special photographic project here that you restarted?
No, we restarted from scratch, and we photographed it in 3 sessions over the last 2 years. So it's total fresh look at it. There's a few historic pictures in it. We got a couple of pictures from the Auckland Museum, one of whaling and one of the Kauri logs that were floated out of here, just to show a bit of the history. But no, it's a fresh look at Barrier the way it is today, and we felt that we wanted to capture it now before it turns into another Waiheke. I don't think it ever will, because it'll always be that little bit further out. But there is, when you look at the houses and the real estate here now, it's certainly a lot different from it was in the 80s.
I'd always like to think that threat that we all worry about is just a way of sort of saying that we value what we've got here. And
that's why. Yeah, I mean, I think that's how the book reflects the value you've got here. And it's about to skite to people that, hey, hopefully locals will buy this and send it to people overseas and say, this is where we live. Aren't we lucky?
And looking at the images in there, just does very much to capture that, I think, from where I come from. Tell me, this is part of a series. I think you've got 5 other titles already from Rotorua, Taupo, Taranaki. Now, those are places. Were those places you picked because you had a personal connection, or how did you end up with those? Because they're the same format, the same approach.
Well, I've been a photojournalist this is my 47th year as a photojournalist, and I've worked in newspapers around the world. And I moved back to my hometown of New Plymouth from Christchurch, actually, and I met my business partner, Orm Greensall. And Orm came to me because he had a beautiful holiday home in Taupo. And he said to me, I've been looking at the shops in Taupo and I can't find a book that says My Taupo. Would I be interested in doing a book for him or with him? So I looked at it, and Orm and I formed a partnership about 6 years ago now. And my first project was 3 months in Taupo, photographing for Orm what I thought Taupo was. And that was our first book, Images of a Nation, Taupo. And that's sold about 5,000 copies, and it's been hugely successful. And so the next one was obviously Taranaki, and I was born and bred in Taranaki, had my first 18 years there. And when I moved back 10 years ago, I wanted to discover the Taranaki I remembered. And so my second book was obviously on Images of a Nation, Taranaki. And my idea is to you start digging and you'll meet somebody who will then lead you to someone else to tell you a story about someone else, and this old water wheel or this and that. And the more you dig around in these societies, the more interesting it gets. It becomes one lead leads to another, and it's a journey. It's absolutely amazing what you find just by talking to people. And with the camera opens people up. It's like it's your introduction. There's no barrier between. I've got a reason to be talking to them. And I've discovered some amazing things. And and we've gone on to do Rotorua, Canterbury. The Canterbury book's a bit historic now. It was done before the earthquake, and it's sort of a collector's item of a lot of downtown Christchurch, which isn't there anymore. But it's a great way of life, and just photographing people.
So I'm sure that this literary journey that you saw on there with these book projects is probably not going to stop in Great Bear Island. Have you got other places lined up that you'd like to include?
Well, it's really interesting. I'm working on about 5 different books at the moment. I've just started one on the Hokianga Harbour and the Maori that live around there. I'm doing one on in conjunction with a beautiful photographer from Wellington on old wool sheds of New Zealand. That's in black and white photography. That'll be a real coffee table book. I'm also doing another one on hunting with hounds in New Zealand. There's 27 hunt clubs in New Zealand. They don't hunt fox, obviously. They hunt hares. And a lot of people don't even know it goes on, but and it's been banned in England. But I did a book on that about 8 years ago, and it sold out 5,000 copies at $96 a copy. And people want me to do it again, do another one. So yeah, I've got plenty of projects on. Orm and I have now branched into children's books as well. And we've got 2 very, very successful ones set on a high country sheep station in the Arachri Valley near Blenheim, called Mac and Storm. The Mac is the sheepdog, and it's a children's book about what Mac does on the station. The other one is Storm the horse, and what the horse does on the station with the roundup. And I've started a series called Where Does Come From? Where Does Milk Come From, for instance. I've done a book on where does milk come from for schools. So I took my 8-year-old grandson out to the farm, 20 visits to the farm over a period of time, all the facets of dairy farming, with all the statistics, and just landed in from our printers this week is the one on where does honey come from. And I'm now started on one called Where Does Wool Come From? So I'm having fun.
That sounds very much like it. As you just said before we started, you've been in this 47 years and haven't worked a day in your life yet.
No, it's true. My wife reckons I should go get a real job.
I'm speaking to Rob Tucker here, who's here for the launch of the book co-produced with Dave Hancock, Australian-based photographer, who both have had an association with the island that we've been talking about. And I'm going to take a break now and then talk a little bit more with you, Rob, about your career in photography, because it sounds like those 47 years involved quite a few interesting trips. So come back for that after this interval.